All right, guys, welcome back yet again. I am working on the 2000 Ford Ranger here. Ran into a snag. I took it for a couple laps around the neighborhood just to make sure that the power steering fluid is cycling through, and I saw that there is a coolant leak. Parked it in the driveway, put a rag under it, and it was dripping pretty healthily. So after looking under the hood here, I noticed that there is a crack. You can see it right there on the top of the radiator. It's not coming out like crazy, but it is leaking. To replace the radiator, it's $130, but instead I'm going to show you a quick way to repair your radiator instead of replacing. All right, your first step is to loosen the top two bolts of your radiator right here. So you have a 10 millimeter there, and you have a 10 millimeter there, and I have a 10 millimeter wrench. Okay, so I got that 10 millimeter bolt out, and I have this 10 millimeter bolt out. And now down here, the radiator just sits, the bottom support just sits in this little channel right there. So you just lift up and pop it out. And now I can get a good look at where the crack is. You want to clean it up, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my Dremel tool here, or rotary grinder, if you will, and I'm going to make a little bit of a groove. The reason for making a little bit of a groove on the crack is because it gives the sealant that I'm going to put on there a higher surface area. So if you give the sealant more surface area to grab onto, you're going to have a better seal, and it's much less likely that it will leak. If any of you have ever welded anything before, if you've welded two plates together, you know that by grinding a groove or a V or a bevel, as you call it, will give you a much stronger weld because you have a higher, basically higher area penetration that the molten steel is gonna connect the two plates together. So we're gonna go ahead and grind a groove there, and then we're gonna put the sealant on. Okay, so I have the sealant mixed together. I just used a flathead screwdriver. I have about 1,000 flathead screwdrivers, so I don't really care about tossing this one. And then what I'm gonna do is just take some of the sealant, and I'm just gonna apply it right on the crack, and then of course, I always have protective gloves on. You should always wear gloves if you're doing any sort of work with any chemicals or anything at all. Your hands are very precious. Your hands are very valuable. Don't screw up your hands. That being said, I'm going to spread this along the crack with the screwdriver, and then I'm going to take my hand and make sure it's gets everywhere, and I'll do enough applicant to cover everything. So, all right, so I have the epoxy spread on there with the screwdriver, and now I'm going to smooth it all out by hand. Okay, as you can see, I got it spread pretty nicely on there. I made a groove past the crack point. As you can see, it looks like a pretty good crack. It wasn't that big to start with. I made a groove past it, and I epoxied past it just to prevent future leaks, because you know cracks can spread, so I wanted to try to nip that right in the bud. I used a lot of epoxy to try to seal it up. I figured, why not overdo it a little bit? The box says allow 4 hours to cure, and this is JB Weld quick weld. It's rated for 3,000 psi. Radiators usually go between 60 and 80 pounds, so this is pretty good stuff supposedly. So we'll find out. Yeah. All right, as you can probably see, the JB Weld is now nice and hardened. The box said to give it 4 to 6 hours. I gave it almost 8 hours just to be sure. I also put in some Bars Leak block seal into the radiator. The instructions called for about a half of a bottle for a 4-cylinder engine. I have, I don't know, a little less than half, maybe more like a third or so, or maybe 3/8 of it in there, just as a precautionary measure. So the next thing to do is to fire the truck up and let it come up to temperature and let the coolant flow through and see if it leaks. I have a puppy pad underneath the front end of the truck to hopefully catch any leaks, but let's hope it does not. All right, truck's running, and I figure it's probably going to take 12 or 13 minutes or so for it to get up to temperature in order for coolant to start flowing through. So we'll check then. But real quick, guys, if you're doing this, make sure you have a garage door open or some sort of proper ventilation. I'm sure people would die from doing dumb stuff like this in a garage that's not ventilated. So luckily I have a garage door in the front and also the back, and so it can be properly ventilated. Never mind all the crap in the garage. It is February here in New England, and I have not done my spring cleaning yet. Okay, so I ran the truck for about 20 minutes. I had the heater on full heat, the fan blowing high, got everything circulated through, and I'm happy to say that it worked. As you can see, I got a dry radiator right there, and looks like the JB Weld did a good job sealing everything up. And I have a dry puppy pad underneath, so no more radiator leak. It doesn't hurt to double kill as far as trying to fix something. So, like, I put the JB Weld on the crack, and then I also did the bars leak. So it won't hurt to do that anyways. This bars leak stuff is meant to be permanent, and so it won't hurt to put it in just in case. So just in case part of this JB Weld chips, the bars leak in this system might fix that hole. So really cheap way to fix this, guys. I think the bars leak cost $10 and the JB Weld was $4.99. So $15 fix. Otherwise, the radiator is $130 just for the part. And if you take it somewhere, you're probably gonna pay at least a couple $100 for installation because you have to flush the coolant and all that kind of stuff. So wrench on, guys. If you can fix it yourself, if you can save money, do it yourself. The only tools I needed here were a 10 millimeter, I did a 10 millimeter open-ended wrench. I didn't even use a socket and a ratchet just because there's two of them. Big friggin' deal. So 10 millimeter wrench and a little bit of know-how, and you can fix a very expensive problem on your car or truck. So good luck, everybody.